Many people don't realize that Charles Dickens, author of the holiday favorite A Christmas Carol, wrote more than one Christmas novella. 2 years after the publication of this standard, he wrote another entitled A Cricket on the Hearth. Obviously less familiar and not nearly so successful, it nonetheless contains timeless Yuletide messages, much like its more famous predecessor. Back in 1967, an animated television version of this classic appeared for the first time with an all-star cast, including Danny Thomas, Marlo Thomas, Ed Ames, Hans Conried, Addie Lane, the Norman Luboff Choir, and Roddy McDowall. Not so well known as many similar Christmas specials, it truly deserves closer scrutiny and another deeper look at the lessons to be gleaned from it. And even though this is a special geared towards children, it has underlying messages that reach across all ages. As many know, crickets have long been heralded as indicators of good luck. For that reason, they are among the most revered of insects. In fact, there's a saying that when things are going well, the cricket chirps. When there is sorrow, it is silent. The beginning of the story begins in a flashback to an earlier time during the spring. Our narrator, the Cricket Crockett to be exact, is a young, dashing cricket looking for a family to adopt. He comes upon the happiest home he's ever seen, which has a toy shop attached. The owner of the home and toy maker, Caleb Plummer, invites Cricket to stay there, seconding the fact that he brings good luck. We are also introduced to Caleb's daughter Bertha and her fiancé Edward Belton, a member of the Royal Navy who's going off to sea for a 2-year stint. The couple pledges their love to each other in spite of his required duty. The cricket is moved by their devotion amidst the impending separation. As Christmas approaches, Cricket assists with his host's creation of countless toys in preparation for the holidays. As toys bring entertainment and welcome diversion to countless kids, they agree that no one wants a child who can't smile. At the same time, Cricket notices that Bertha is crying. She admits she's thinking of Edward, but insists that she's crying because she's happy and that smiles go with tears. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. In walks a bearer of bad news, one Jeremiah Bleak, an agent of Her Majesty the Queen. Bleak announces that Edward, Bertha's beloved, has been lost at sea. He also returns Edward's personal effects. Bertha is shocked and dumbfounded and spirals into immediate disbelief and depression. Cricket notes that this was the beginning of all their troubles. To make matters worse, the grief-stricken Bertha becomes blind. All at once, with Bertha in darkness and Caleb, her father, in sorrow, the household was unable to finish the Christmas toys in time for the holidays. Caleb racks up unbelievable debt in trying to find the proper help and treatment for his daughter. After borrowing his limit, he and his daughter are forced to leave their comfortable house. He must find new work and a new, cheaper place to live. En route to the poorhouse, he spies another toy factory sign. The factory is run by a Mr. Tackleton, a man of questionable character and shady reputation. Tackleton owns a threatening pet crow named Uriah Caw. Tackleton admits he could use Caleb's skills, allows Plummer and his daughter to live in his ramshackle home, and says they'd also be entitled to any leftovers to eat. In the new place, the new fireplace is also less than desirable, and Cricket is not thrilled. Uriah Caw tries to intimidate Cricket, telling him he loves to mangle insects. With just weeks to go before Christmas, Caleb Plummer works day and night to keep up with the demands of the season. The miser Tackleton complains that Plummer is costing him too much money because of his insistence to detail. He maintained that the paint for the smiles on the dolls' faces was too costly. So, to outsmart his cheap boss, while Tackleton was sleeping, He'd sneak into the workshop with Cricket to make the dolls look proper with nice smiles. 2 days before Christmas, Caleb and Bertha meet an old man with achy bones who has no money for a room and is forced to sleep outdoors. The plumbers invite the stranger home with them. Bertha's mood improves, knowing that there will be a full house this Christmas. She makes her father promise that there will be mistletoe and a big tree, even though she can't see them. The next day, Tackleton announces he'll be giving both Caleb and Bertha a pittance of a Christmas bonus. There is an ulterior motive for his kindness. Tackleton decides he needs a wife, announces that Bertha will be his intended, and that they will have a Christmas wedding. Caleb wants no part of this, but Bertha decides she will accept the proposal. She tells her father she's no longer a child. Meanwhile, the old stranger enters to give Bertha his heartfelt congratulations. Knowing that this is definitely not a match made in heaven, Cricket consults his best friends, a mouse, a bird, and a cockroach, with a plan to squash the wedding. Shackleton realizes what is going on and asks Uriah Caw to help him get the cricket. "I want that cricket eliminated." Uriah calls upon two buddies, Strangler and Slink, a dog and a monkey, to help him kidnap Cricket and send him on a sailing ship to China, since crickets command top dollar in China because of their promise of good luck. While aboard ship, Cricket feigns his own death, leading his smuggler to believe he's no longer of use to him, so he throws Cricket overboard. Even though crickets can't swim, they do float. Through a maritime miracle, Cricket gets transferred from a whale to a pelican to a swordfish to seahorses before arriving home just in the nick of time for Christmas Eve. The scene shifts back to the Tackleton house, where a wedding gown can be seen. In the dead of night on Christmas Eve, all of the toys that Caleb and Bertha had made come to life. The toys announced they would do anything for the plumbers. If it were not for them, we'd be ugly, the toys reveal. The mysterious man comes clean and admits that he's none other than Edward Belton, Bertha's true love, who was thought lost at sea. He announces that he did not drown, but rather built himself a raft and wound up on a beautiful uncharted island. He fended for himself there for 2 years until a whaler found him and sent him back to England. Upon returning, he went directly to Bertha, but saw that she had gone blind. Accepting her condition as his fault, he opted for the disguise to be near her without anyone knowing. When Edward heard Bertha refer to Tackleton as the most wonderful man in the world, he realized that Tackleton had so much more to offer her. Cricket wakes up Bertha, who thinks she's dreaming, when told that Edward is indeed alive. On Christmas morning, Tackleton is upset when left waiting at the church. Bertha admits, "My heart belongs to Edward. It always has." But flattering Tackleton by telling him there would always be a place in her heart for a kind, fine, handsome, noble gentleman such as he, seems to help him swallow his pride. As the story concludes, Bertha exclaims, "Oh, Cricket, you're the luckiest thing that ever happened to anyone." The viewers are told, "May you all have good health, good cheer, and a Merry Christmas, and never be without a cricket on the hearth." Although a fanciful tale loaded with imagination, there are still many threads of Christian truth that are woven throughout this story. The first idea that comes to mind is the triumph of good over evil. The plumbers are good, hard-working people who, like many of us, encounter hardships, tragedies, and disappointments in life. Regardless, they persevere, never lose faith, and forever keep their eyes on the prize. It takes time, patience, and endurance, but in the end, they're rewarded for their steadfastness, their tireless effort, and their determination. True love also wins out, as does the return of joy in life. Jesus is certainly much more than a good luck charm. He's our Savior, our healer, our guide, our friend. But we would all agree that were it not for him, we would not know the meaning of grace in our lives. We would not experience true love. We would not know the miracle of salvation. It might be something of a stretch, but the cricket in the story might be seen as a metaphor for Jesus, the ever-present sustenance in our lives. He lives with us, if we but invite him into our hearts, much as the cricket lived on the hearth in the plumber home. Cricket Crockett was also a great facilitator of so many of the good things that happened to the plumbers. Just as God sees us through and guides us through all of the challenges and issues of life, he tries to protect the plumbers from danger and deception. And Cricket is put through many trials and is all but left for dead. But through a miraculous turn of events, he came back to his people, the plumbers, and turned their lives upside down in the best possible way. We too have been saved by God's plan of salvation and in Jesus' resurrection. I'm also reminded of the Beatitudes here, those blessings that Jesus pronounced in the Sermon on the Mount. In each, he promised a hopeful outcome and promise of restoration for those experiencing those conditions: poor, mourning, meek, hungry for righteousness, merciful, pure, peacemakers, and persecuted. Throughout the story, the upright and hardworking plumbers exemplify just about all of the traits Jesus mentions in the Sermon on the Mount. They become poor. Father and daughter mourn the loss of her vision. They are pure and kind. They take in the wandering stranger mercifully. They seem to be persecuted, even though they are upright and righteous. Jesus assures us that all who experience these qualities will be rewarded for their faith, their patience, and their determination. For all their struggles and suffering, the plumbers are rewarded in the end with reunion, happiness, restored comfort, and promise for the future. How great to have two such contrasting but inspiring Christmas works by Charles Dickens. May both be a blessing to you this holiday season.